One question I get asked a lot is, why would you use Illustrator as opposed to Photoshop? Basically, why vectors as opposed to pixels? So here I'm in Illustrator and I've imported a JPEG, which is a load of pixels. And here I've created a simple shape, which is basically a vector structure. And if I zoom in, you can see the difference, because if I zoom in enough, you can see the pixels of the image, but the vector shape, the Illustrator shape, is pin sharp still. And that's basically how it works. A Photoshop or a photograph is made up of squares, rectangles, usually squares. And if you scale it up, the resolution drops, so it looks bad. But with a vector shape like this, I can zoom in as much as I like. I can scale it up, scale it down, and it will always look and print out as good as possible. But there's some pros and cons. So the cons is basically it can take a while to create, but the pros, basically the file size is smaller. There's a stylistic difference. Resizing is not an issue. So there's no resolution. In Photoshop, when you create a document, you have to put in a resolution, 200 dots per inch, 300, whatever. But in Illustrator, you don't. And after you create the shape, it's easy to edit these strokes and fills. So when would you use Illustrator? Well, here's another example of vectors versus pixels. So on the left, we have a poster, a film poster. This is Photoshop work. We have 3 images put together, colored, etc. But on the right, we have a different style. This is vector work, simple lines, and they're not always simple, but in this case, they are simple lines, flat colors to produce a stylistic difference. And what we can also do is we can use it for maps. That's another thing which is very useful, is vectors for maps. Again, because a vector is a smaller file size, it's easy to load, zoom in, zoom out, etc. So here you can see maps and also signage as well. See the shapes, we've got text, circles, rectangles, etc. Nice, simple, straightforward to produce a sign. Signs have to be simple, flat colors usually, to make it obvious and understandable. It's used for fashion, as you can see here. It's not like you're going to create a shirt here and do file and print. It's used in the fashion industry for mocking up displays, visuals basically, and putting patterns in, as you can see here. Packaging, it's used in packaging all over, as you can see, various outlines. This is what would get printed out to card or plastic or whatever, which is then bent, folded, etc., etc. Patterns. So here, for example, we have a very good Spanish designer, Catalina Estrada, and she uses Illustrator, and she's used it to create posters, as you can see, bedding, pillows, shoes, all sorts of stuff. Labels, in this case on this, I think it's water, all sorts of things like that. And we have icons, as you can see here. So Illustrator is perfect for icons, simple shapes, and then export as JPEG, PNG, or whatever. But the initial image is Illustrator. So that's the reason why to use Illustrator versus Photoshop. And those are the various areas to use them. We could also use it for presentations and things like that, but these are the main things. So style, maps, signage, fashion, packaging, fabrics, icons, and so on.